Morning. Everybody ready? Okay. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Today we'd like to talk about one of the biggest challenges facing the state of Illinois, and that is our pension system. We have the largest unfunded pension liability in America. We have a lot of abuse in the system, and it's diverting resources from our taxpayers into an unsustainable pension structure, money that should go to our schools and money that should go to our human services to support our most vulnerable families. And we need to change our pension system. You know that there have been years of wrangling about this. Finally, there was a pension reform bill passed in the General Assembly after much delay. I personally fought against that pension reform bill because I believed it was unconstitutional. I believe it is not either fair or morally right or constitutional to reduce someone's pension benefit that they've earned after the fact. And it turned out that the Supreme Court ruled exactly that, and they threw out that pension reform bill. I'm personally amazed and appalled that since the Supreme Court ruling in May, the legislature has done nothing to come back and deal with pension reform, even though it's one of the biggest financial crises that we face as a state. They've done nothing, and the Supreme Court gave us an indication in their ruling about what they believe is constitutional, and that is a consideration model to change our pensions. But Speaker Madigan has done nothing to address pension reform. He has stonewalled, delayed, and done nothing, as he has on every other reform. Back years ago, when the pension debate was going on, President Cullerton introduced a pension reform proposal. It resulted in less savings than the one that was ultimately passed, but it was fundamentally based in a consideration model. And at the time, President Cullerton actually got some of the unions to go along and support his pension reform bill at the time. We have advocated a fairly dramatic pension reform proposal ourselves, using a consideration model, and we've introduced it to the legislature and asked them to vote on it. They've refused to vote on it so far, just as they've refused to vote on our proposal for term limits. They've refused to vote on our proposal for redistricting reform. They've refused to vote on our workers' comp reform, and they've refused to vote on our true long-term property tax freeze by giving local control of government costs. Speaker Madigan has said no to every reform. Our state is in crisis. We need to change direction, and Speaker Madigan has said no to every reform. He has said, I want to pass high spending, and I want Governor to pay for it. You raise the taxes, Governor, to pay for it. Speaker Madigan, completely unreasonable, irresponsible as a leader of the legislature. In the spirit of compromise, we have now gone to President Cullerton and said, Mr. President, I did not support your pension reform bill in the past because I didn't believe it went far enough. I believe we need more significant pension reform than what you've proposed in your pension reform bill. But in the spirit of compromise and as a step in the right direction, I'm willing to support, and right now I endorse your pension reform bill. Let's bring it back, let's vote on it, and let's get it done. It will save $1 billion a year for Illinois taxpayers. It applies to the 4 state pension funds. Does not apply to the judge's pension fund, and I will save my comments about our judiciary for another date. But it applies to our 4 primary pension funds at the state level. Does not apply to any other pension funds in the state or in any other cities, and I will not include any other funds in this pension reform. We will do it, the president's proposal, using a consideration model. And for those of you who, let me give you the short, if I can, short tutorial on consideration. That means not taking away anything by force, but giving people a choice on economic options for themselves. President Cullerton's proposal basically said, let's give our employees a choice. If they would like to continue to have their salary increases be pensionable, those increases in pay be subject to pension benefits, then they must choose to have their COLA in their pension be 3%, the lesser of 3% or half of the consumer price index increase. That will be their cost of living adjustment if they choose to keep their salary increases pensionable. Or if they're willing to have their salary increases not be subject to pension benefits in the future, then they can keep the current cost of living adjustment at 3%. That's what President Cullerton's model did. The unions went along with it, and we now will support President Cullerton in that effort. What our lawyers have made clear to the president, and his lawyers have now agreed, and I spoke with President Cullerton about this morning. He was appreciative, he was positive, he was forward-leaning, and was going to be talking with members of the General Assembly about this. But he was very appreciative and positive, and I'm excited about that myself. This does not go as far as we need to. $1 billion is not enough, but it's a step in the right direction. We can do this on a bipartisan basis. And that may free up resources now in the spirit of compromise. Maybe we won't get these savings initially. The savings will roll in the coming months. Maybe we could use this as a bipartisan compromise, for example, to bridge financing to that pension saving and use some of that savings to fund MAP grants now, as an example of what we might do together. Rather than continue to dig a financial hole, let's solve the problems with compromise, free up resources, and put it where it belongs to go. So right now, President Cullerton is working with other members of the General Assembly. I'm cautiously optimistic that he will step forward and that we can introduce this pension reform bill and get it done. What we will continue to advocate is that we do pension reform for other pension funds and that we do more at the state level. Here's the key distinction. We actually had to improve President Cullerton's bill now and clarify it, and his lawyer agreed with our lawyer, and we've made the change. In order for President Cullerton's bill to be constitutional, salary increases have to be taken out of collective bargaining. This is a key point. Salary increases come out of collective bargaining. And then so the union has nothing to do with it in the future. And each individual employee makes their own choice. Do they want their salary increases in the future to be pensionable or not? It's their choice. It's not the union's choice. President Cullerton has agreed with that. That is necessary and a requirement for this to be constitutional. Our lawyers have agreed. His lawyers have agreed. What we'd like to do in the future is to take other things out of collective bargaining at the state and at the city levels and let each community customize packages of compensation on wages and benefits and use those as incentive for folks to choose. Let each employee choose to be in Tier 1 or Tier 2 or Tier 3. Right now, President Cullerton does not want to go that far. He wants to only have salary increases be out of collective bargaining. And I've said, okay, in the spirit of compromise, as a first step to get things done and move forward, let's do that. President Cullerton, let's just do your idea. You've already got your caucus to vote for it. You've already got the roll call ready to go. Let's get it done. Let's move forward for the people of Illinois. With that, I'll turn it over to Leader Radonio and Leader Durkin for further comment, and then we can do some Q&A.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm glad we're back here talking about pensions. Obviously, it's one of the biggest factors that underlies the state budget issues. And since the Senate Bill 1 decision in Kenerva, it's pretty much been off the table. And we've really been in stasis on the whole issue. We were throwing a couple of curveballs in those decisions, particularly health care not being allowed to be part of the consideration. But as you know, the consideration model that Cullerton had used health care. We probably can't do that, so we've come up with another item for consideration being the salary increases. As the governor pointed out, the savings here, about $1 billion a year, seems puny when we were talking about 20, 30 billion under Senate Bill 1, but it is what's available to us, and $1 billion is nothing to sneeze at. That's savings that can go to education, to human services, and so we're willing to start small. And importantly, I think that this is such an important issue, and there's true bipartisan cooperation on it. Hopefully it paves the path for things going forward. I guarantee that I will put more votes on this bill than I was able to do in the last round. It will really be bipartisan. We will do our part. And this, again, I hope will be the first example of us coming together on many more compromises to move the state forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. And as we all know, it's been much heralded, and it's unfortunate that we have the worst funded pension system in the United States, approximately $110 billion. The pension debt continues to drag on our economy. It suffocates resources for our core mission of providing children with a quality education, keeping our communities safe, and providing care for the most vulnerable citizens. We need to act and act quickly. As soon as President Cullerton introduces legislation with some minor tweaks in the Senate, I plan to introduce the same in the House. While we passed a much more comprehensive bill last year, it was struck down by the courts. Many Democrats feel that the Cullerton approach, which was crafted with the help of the We Are One coalition, is constitutional. For the long-term health of the state and in our effort to stabilize our pension systems, we need to work together and to get pension reform passed this session. As we all know, President of the Senate is a policy-driven legislator. He is also a true student of the law. So for the past 6 months, I've been hearing from him, "I told you so." So today, I'm willing to take that leap of faith with the President of the Senate and to work with him to secure the votes in the House of Representatives to get a pension bill passed and on the governor's desk for signature. Thank you.
All right, we open up to questions.
Do you have Speaker Madigan's buy-in on this, or has he met with you on this?
My understanding is the president is in discussions with the speaker on this morning. I have not discussed this with the speaker.
Why is President Clark here?
Actually, scheduling. He's actually working with his lawyers and speaker on this morning. I talked to him this morning about it. He was quite positive.
What happened to your proposal in July for pensions? Wasn't that never introduced? Why aren't we moving forward with that one?
Yes, it was. We have a pension reform bill. Ours actually included the city of Chicago. Ours actually had more funding for Chicago. Ours was more comprehensive, and ours saved over $2 billion a year for state taxpayers. Our bill was rejected. The speaker refused to call it. The speaker won't deal with it. And President Cullerton said he won't support our pension reform bill because it saved too much. It made too much change. He won't support it. So we've said, okay, you guys won't do significant reform. Let's take a small step in the right direction. President Cullerton, let's do your bill.
Governor, I just want to make sure I heard you right. I think you're saying that the original version of Cullerton's bill would not have passed legal muster, would not have been constitutional, but by taking wages out of collective bargaining, it does become constitutional, and he's agreed to do that.
That is correct. That is our view. President Cullerton has believed that even the language they had before was probably constitutional, but he believes that ours makes it more certain to be constitutional, and he's supportive of our language.
Now that you've got the ball rolling on pensions, do you plan to do something similar on workmen's compensation with the causation standard, and who would you approach?
Although the 4 leader meetings, the speaker skipped the last one and has resisted any of those, I think he agreed to do them in December more as a fundraising tool than as a real negotiation. Despite that, we have had ongoing negotiations on every level of our reforms. We have had very serious conversations going on, mostly in the executive mansion in Springfield recently, on workers' comp reform. The negotiations continue on an ongoing basis. It's critically important. Workers' comp reform, even the mayor of Chicago has agreed, workers' comp reform could save Chicago taxpayers tens of millions, over time hundreds of millions of dollars. We can save government taxpayer money by doing it in government, and we can grow more jobs in Illinois by being competitive on our workers' comp costs. And to be clear, we don't need to go to Indiana's level. Indiana has the lowest workers' comp costs in America, okay? They have the lowest, and they're right next door, so a lot of them manufacturers go there. Manufacturers would rather be in Illinois. We don't have to compete with Indiana and go to the lowest level. I've asked to set a goal, let's be average. Let's be average. And that's hard for us on bad things, but let's be average. And let's not be the worst. Let's be average. If we're average, we will grow our economy and recruit manufacturing firms here. So far, the only real folks who are hurt by that process, Speaker Madigan says, oh, you'll hurt the working people. No, we won't. We're going to protect people who are honestly injured on the job and make sure they get good health care. Who's hurt by this is the trial lawyers. That's true. And they fund the Speaker to millions of dollars. I get why he's cranky to deal with workers' comp because his funders get hurt, but we need to grow our jobs. And let me be clear on something else. The Speaker continuously says he is about the middle class and I'm anti-middle class. That is pure baloney. Baloney. And let me be clear. We now know that we have the highest paid state government employees in America. That's a fact. Think about that. We have the highest state government paid employees in America. Now, California and New Jersey, the two other states that are almost as bankrupt as us, actually technically pay a little bit more to their state employees, but when you adjust for cost of living, we have the highest state government paid employees in America. That's who Speaker Madigan advocates for. That's his middle class. That's the political class. That is the political class. And you know what else? Speaker Madigan says, let's not compete with Indiana or Tennessee or Texas. That's a race to the bottom. He says they hurt their middle class. You know what? This is an important point. I need you guys to understand this. This is where the Speaker is feeding a line of baloney to the people of Illinois. Indiana has now surpassed Illinois. Indiana's factory workers now make more than Illinois' factory workers when you adjust for cost of living. That is an outrage, ladies and gentlemen. That has never happened before. And now in most categories of blue-collar workers, Indiana's employees make more than Illinois. And people say, well, they're a right-to-work state and they're anti-worker, they're an anti-employee. Their people are doing better than us because they're growing their economy, they're competitive in Indiana. Same thing in Texas. Texas, Speaker Madigan says, we don't want to be them, race to the bottom, they're anti-employee. Their people in factories make more than ours adjusted. Why? Because they're competitive, they're growing, we're not, and that's what's got to change. Yes, sir.
You've spent the last 15 minutes bashing a little bit. How are you going to get him on your side to get the vote for the pension bill that you brought us here to talk about?
He's taught us how to work with him. Peace through strength. Peace through strength.
Can you explain more about the constitutionality thing? I'm down here, sorry. Can you explain to make the Cullerton bill constitutional, you have to take salary increases out of collective bargaining?
Correct.
That's different than the bill initially, which...
No, it took it out. He just didn't use the right technical words. It's the same principle. His core bill is the same. He's got to pick his words a little more carefully. It's the same effect. To do what he wanted to do, you have to take it out of bargaining. He didn't actually spin it that way. He didn't use the words correctly. You got to use the words. The judges will throw it out. It's the exact same result, nothing different.
Because the judges said they have to get something in return if they're going to give something up.
That's why,
It sounds
see,
like two diminishments.
yeah, see, you're on a critical point. They are not guaranteed collective bargaining on anything. We have been willing to give that, but we can take anything out of collective bargaining, and we have. State of Illinois and the city of Chicago has taken many things out of collective bargaining. Nobody is guaranteed to collective bargain anything. So this is not a diminution. We have the ability to give you something, a collective bargaining ability or not. We're removing one thing. I'd like to remove 3 or 4 and customize packages. But, other states don't have collective bargaining in government, period, because they say it's a conflict of interest. They have none. We have everything. And we have the most unionized state government in America. And this is important for you guys to know. It's broken. It's corrupt. What Governor Blagojevich did, in order to get more campaign cash, he wanted more money from AFSCME. What he did is he went into the government and said, if you're in the union, I'll give you 4% raises. as long as I'm governor. If you're not in the union, you will not get a raise in the state of Illinois. Think about that. In exchange for AFSCME giving them more cash. That is broken. That is corrupt. This is our politician playing footsie with the unions for their own political benefit. And it hurts our taxpayers. And I'm having a heck of a time running our government because our managers make less than the folks that they manage. And almost all of our managers have been forced into the union, and now the supervisors are making the work schedule. And you know what? They're trying to maximize overtime because they're in the union. We got no management. It's a broken system. Our governors, especially Blagojevich, have used it for political benefit, and our taxpayers are hurt as a result. This is what we've got to change.
Hi, the Illinois Supreme Court is going to rule very soon on Chicago's pension reform law, and Chicago's argument includes consideration. You know, what are you going to do if the court rules against consideration in
I've looked at Chicago's pension reform bill. I don't think it's going to be constitutional. I don't think they were thoughtful about it. I don't think they did a good job, as in many other ways. I think the court's going to throw out the Chicago bill, but I don't know. We'll see what they say.
Again, it's sometimes
It won't make it harder. Our bill is pure. It's clean. It is, and we agree with President Culleton, his staff, our staff, all the attorneys we've spoken with. We believe very strongly that President Culleton's bill, with the wording picked properly, will be constitutional. Yes, sir.
Would you bank on pension savings from this right away, not give any leeway for court challenge to come?
Oh, we'll be in court. Believe me, we'll be in court for a while.
But will you bank on the savings right away? The last bill they said let's not do that while a court challenge.
When you say bank, what do you mean?
Will you include
In our budget. Well, we'll talk about budget in a few weeks. We got to get structural reform and start saving taxpayer money.
Governor, how's it going trying to run state government as a business?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. You know, I've now gone into many of the departments, not all of them yet, but many of them. We have great people in government. Most of them are terrific. A few of them are not. A few of them are there for political reasons, not to serve taxpayers. We're sorting that out. And a bunch of them get union protection. It's almost impossible to get rid of anybody and I'll have stories coming. I'm not going to go into it today. I'll tell you, I go in, the people are great. A lot of times I'll go in standing ovation into different departments. And in almost every department, somebody stands up and says, Governor, it's great to see you. I've worked for state government for 27 years. I've never seen a governor. I've worked for state government for 35 years. I've never seen a governor. Thanks for coming. Thanks for knowing we're here. And I say, I work for you. My job is to help you do your job better. They appreciate it. And then I say, I want you to make more money, but I want you to make more money not from seniority, but because of your productivity. I want you to make more money, but I'll give you a percentage of every dollar you save for taxpayers. And a whole bunch of the guys in the room go, yeah. And a few of them go, ooh, no. And the union bosses hate that. They don't want merit pay. They don't want to save taxpayer money. And I go into one department, there are 200 people in the room moving paper across their desks. And I said, I heard they invented computers recently, and we might actually be able to digitize this and save money. And people go, oh, that's a sensitive subject. We can't lose jobs here. Oh, that could be job losses. Well, you know what? We work for the people of Illinois. That money should be going in our schools, not in this bureaucracy. And they very quickly came back with a report to me. They said, spend $500,000 in a computer system, save $7 million a year. Does AFSCME like that? No. Is AFSCME giving us a hard time about that? Yes, they are. Our system is broken. It's run for the insiders and the politicians, not the taxpayers, and that's what we're going to change.
So you think you can still run it like a business?
We're getting there.
Governor, about schools, how are you planning to control CPAs when you don't have votes in Springfield?
I believe we'll have the votes. This is a critical issue. The legislators in both political parties, and especially the Democrats, have got to wake up. We have been subsidizing the patronage and abuse in CPS for years. Their suburban taxpayers, their downstate taxpayers are sending extra cash to CPS. They better wake up and protect their taxpayers. One of the things that's going to happen this year is our legislators are going to get called out. They talk against the Chicago political machine. They talk against the speaker. They say, I stand up. I work for my district. they're not working for their district. They take money from the Chicago political machine. They vote for the speaker to stay in power, and it's breaking our state. And the legislators around the suburbs of Chicago and downstate better wake up and start smelling the coffee and deal with the votes for the right thing.
How are they going to get called out?
You watch.
Governor, could you react?
Yes, yes.
Governor, yesterday you didn't want to talk about the bill by Representative Harris on the Don score. You had a letter from your legislative liaison, Richard Goldberg, saying you have no plans to raise the Don score again. Why not? Why?
I'm not going to talk about Don score today. I will, I promise you, I will go into it in depth, but I'm not going to go into it today. Mary Ann, did you have?
Can I ask you about Chicago State again, because there's also a letter from Richard about Chicago State to them. Some complaining going on about Tom Williams, the guy who works there, that used to work for Madigan, there's some of that. And then there's also just kind of calling Chicago State out as saying, you're not such a great university to begin with, so we're not going to worry about you so much. It's really kind of the gist of the article.
Well, I don't think that's accurate. I care very much about the students at Chicago State. I'm an advocate for low-income students. I've personally funded scholarships. I have funded, personally donated to historically black colleges. I care very much about the students at Chicago State. They are being failed by Chicago State University. They have the widest achievement gap between white students and African American students of any college. That is wrong. They are failing, and we're not going to tolerate that kind of failure. I am sick and tired of this failure and excuses for it. No, maybe what we should do is take the money we've been sending to a failed institution and give it to the kids and let them choose their school. Maybe that'd be a smarter way to do it. Because that university is failing those students, low-income kids, minority kids, disadvantaged young people in their 20s struggling to have a job and an education, and we owe them an education, and that institution is not delivering.
They haven't
Last question.
Chicago State and the other schools have not had an appropriation since July 1. What would you advocate they do?
Look at their financial situation. They have been abusing taxpayer dollars, wasting money, and doing self-dealing for years. For them to all of a sudden go, hey, we're sort of more broke than most, while they've been throwing money down the toilet, you know what? Let's have some standards of behavior and hold people to a standard. Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it.